Okay. Kia ora koutou, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Baskets of Knowledge. It's been a while since we've had a live recording, and it's good to have Tane back again. And welcome back, Tane. How have you been?
Yeah, I've been all right. Just spending some time at home, just going through some personal stuff, and then getting back into the rhythm of things. I think this year's really, I guess, summer has given me a lot of reflection points to focus on where I'm going forward. And I think just really trying to hone that in, figure out what my direction is, because I think with all the exciting stuff I've done in the last 5 to 6 months. I think now it's really time to figure out where that direction is going again.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. And it's quite good to have a reset sometimes, think of where you want to go. As always, I like to share something I've been thinking about since our last recording. And one thing that I've been thinking about is working in education over the last few weeks. University has started again, and it's just great seeing young people excited and being back on campus. And I had a conversation with my mentee. So I have a mentee this year. And he said something to me that really stuck into my mind. And I asked him, what his aspiration was and why education, because he comes from a family where nobody went to university. And he said to me a quote that stuck out for him was, um, education is not a struggle, it's not a punishment, and education is an opportunity. And just those words alone just really struck really powerfully to me because it just shows the opportunity that when we think about when we come to education, that it gives you opportunities where sometimes people think like, oh, why do I have to go to school? Why do I have to do this here? So that flipping of the mindset really got me thinking. And it's the irony of that is today's podcast is going to be a little bit about that as well. Maybe not. We'll see how we go. So our guest today is someone I spoke to the guest just before, and before I started, I said to our guest during my last job, I would go around schools and people will talk to me about how they don't enjoy their maths teachers or they struggle with maths, and they always went onto this YouTube channel to learn more about maths. It's like, what? Why are you going on YouTube? Why come on your math teachers are here? And they're like, no. There's this person on YouTube and he's really awesome and he does some amazing stuff. And I was like, okay, whatever. Don't think too much about it because I was there to do my mahi. And then one day I was like, hey, who is this YouTube person? What's the name? They're like, oh, sir, his name. Don't worry about his name. He's called Infinity Plus One. I was like, oh, what an interesting name. And I didn't think too much about it for a while until recently, when this particular person became really more in the limelight and became more across my feed, all my different feeds. And I was like, oh, let me have a chat to this person here because my mentee the other day was so excited about getting a photo with this person, and it was like the dream had come true, and I had to share this with the world and also with the stuff that they've done. So without further ado, welcome to Bust of Knowledge, Infinity Plus One founder, Subash.
Chandar K. All right. Hello, team. Thank you so much for actually having me here. I think that introduction, every time people say that introduction, I'm always sitting there thinking, that's not me. I'm just a guy kind of hiding behind a screen and just doing some work. So, no, thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
No worries, no worries. Thank you for being on here. And I guess before people who don't know who you are, and I guess who is Subash Chandar K at this moment in time.
Oh, at this moment in time, I am still a full-time maths teacher at Ormiston Junior College. So pretty much during the daytime, regular job. In the nighttime, I usually am dormant for about a few months, especially at the start of the year. But then around April, May, I start kicking in and I become my alter ego, which is Infinity Plus One. And pretty much I jump on YouTube and basically run live streams and make content for students that are studying maths from NCA level 1 to level 3. And recently I've been dabbling quite a bit in junior maths because I've had a lot of requests from parents asking, hey, can you also create content for younger kids? And some of my students online, I don't know who they are, but they're like, well, I've got younger cousins who wants to learn. So can you make some content? So that's pretty much a snapshot of what I'm doing right now. The other thing that I also tend to do is I have a third kind of teacher, YouTuber, and I also have a small laser cutting business where I do that as a hobby, but it's kind of turned into making things for friends at a really low price. But yeah, it's just something that I do to keep myself busy. at this moment.
And it's amazing. I love it. And I say this moment because, things change with time. And, if I asked you this question 10 years ago, it'd be a very different story. And it's really, really beautiful. But I love how everything comes from a passion, a place of passion, and goes from there. But, and let's reverse back. If, 10 years ago, if I said to you 10 or 20 or maybe 15 years ago, hey, Subash, in 2025, you are going to be running this YouTube channel. People will be listening to you, and also you will be nominated for, top 10 teacher of the year and local KiwiBank local. What would you have said to me at that point in time?
When are we going? 10 or 15 years back?
We'll go 15. We'll go 15.
15, 2010. All right.
Yeah.
So 2010, I was literally just at the end of 2009. I got married to my wife, Lakshmi. And I'm not gonna lie, man, like at that time I was working in Manariwa High School, and that was my fourth year of teaching, and I had teaching down pat. Like I would rock on to the meeting at 8:15 a.m. or I think 8:30 a.m. was the meeting. I would be there at 8:29. I would teach the full day, and then I'll do all my marking, everything in school. I wouldn't go to like lunchtimes and morning teas. I'll just do all of my marking. And at the end of the day, 3:20, I'm out. I'm out. I go home. And basically at 4 o'clock, I jump on, I don't know if you guys even know World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
I jump on World of Warcraft 4 o'clock, and I'll be playing till sometimes 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Almost every night. And I'd repeat. I'd rinse and repeat that for literally the whole time. So I don't think even for a single second, if anybody had come in my wildest dreams and told me that this is what would have happened, I would have just been like, nah, that's no way that was me. But everything happens for a reason. And I think 2011 happened, and we got a big wake up call with my wife. She had a bit of a tumor concern with her thyroid, and that kind of kicked in again. And it that kind of made us make some decisions in life, which is what's got me to this point here. Now that's a pretty crazy few things that happened because I think it was 2011 we found out she was having some issues, and then we 2010 actually was mid 2010 we found out we kind of got through that. And at the end of 2010, she said to me, "Hey, what do you think about just selling everything and going on a 1 year trip around the globe?" And I nearly crashed the car when she said that.
Yeah.
So I was like, let's do it because I'm all for it. And so yeah, so basically 2011 we ended up saving for the whole year, and we had the opportunity to buy a house, but we were like, nah, let's do it. So yeah, we sold everything and we spent 13 months on the road backpacking around the globe,
Wow.
26 countries, and did some volunteer work in Bali, taught some kids there at a children's home. I went to Nepal, spent some time in Annapurna Base Camp, like 6 weeks and around that area. And yeah, it was just a whirlwind of an adventure. And I think that really changed my view on what education was like, because no matter which country I went to, they all hated maths. And
Yeah.
I was like, man, come on. It's like surely at least one country would like maths. But yeah, so that's pretty much what a summary of 2010, 2011 was like, because even at that point, I don't think for even a second I thought I would get to this point here. Yeah, it's insane.
It's crazy. It's so funny how sometimes things happen in life. As you said, happen for a reason. But it's normally something bad that happens that triggers something positive, in a lot of
Mm.
cases, or positive thinking or change of thinking. So you have your adventure, and do you come back to New Zealand with the plan to go back to teaching, or do you come back because
Well, yeah, so I mean, like it was interesting because Manariwa High gave me a year off to go travel, and I'm not gonna lie, like I mean, there was struggles to get this job at Manariwa High because when I graduated from uni, I took like 6 years to finish my 3 year degree. Because by the way, I've failed a lot in my maths degree. They call me a maths, like some kids call me a maths genius. I'm like, I'm a fraud. It's like
yeah,
I'm a failure because I took 6 years to finish a 3 year degree. And they're like, what, really? I'm like, yeah, yeah. So to me, when I got the only place that I even offered me a job was just Manariwa High. No one really picked up my application when I graduated. So for me, I felt really weird, but because when I was traveling, I got a call from this new college that had just been open for 2 years, and they were like, we heard about you, we heard what you're capable of, and we'd like to hire you. And I'm like, what about an interview? We don't, no interview, just come and work for us. And I'm like, that's insane because 5 years ago, not a single person would pick up my application. But then the real question for me was, hang on a minute, but I'm not doing anything special in Manariva. All I'm doing is finish my job, go home, play games.
Yeah.
So what are they seeing in me? And so I was like, you know what? I was traveling. I was bold, and I said, sure, I'll come and join this school that's got a modern learning environment. It's got no walls, and I'm like, yeah, sure, let's give it a go. And I think coming to Ormiston Senior College in 2013, I returned. And that's when I was like, okay, now this is a completely different kind of way in which we can deliver education. And I think the channel pretty much started around that time, within 6 months of joining that place, because they had a bunch of kids and they were asking the same question, like one exact question. And I think I had a kid that asked me in the morning, and then morning tea, lunchtime, end of day. It was different kids coming at different times. And I remember saying to one of the kids at the end, I said, look, and at that time, YouTube was just starting with the whole education thing. And I was like, do you guys just prefer me just recording it as a YouTube video and just putting it online? And they were like, oh, that would be amazing. So it was really born out of need for the kids. And that's how, the travel allowed me to think differently. And then coming back to New Zealand, working in an environment like that allowed me to go, hey, yep, give it a go, give things a go, see what happens. And I was like, that's pretty much how that kind of kicked off.
It's crazy
Yeah.
how you say that, because a lot of the times it's the same question. People ask the same question, and you go, if three people ask the same question, there's got to be more, just by stats, just by the law of nature. If it's the same question, then something's not going right. And did you choose the name then, or was it just, I'm just going to have a channel and then
No,
pop it up here?
no, 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 no. See, this is where the story actually gets really fuzzy, because because I was from Ormiston Senior College, at that time I was working with my kind of like a not a head teacher, but like she was kind of looking after me, and her name is Mimi Moss. And I said to Moss, I was like, hey, I'm thinking about creating a channel for the kids. Can I just create like a random Gmail account and just put it there? And she's like, yeah, yeah, go for it. And at that time, we all had our own school addresses. And I remember someone actually telling, oh, just create it under your own email address, because then at least it's yours. And I was like, oh, yeah, good point. So my original name that I had for it was Matt's OSC. So the original channel was actually called Matt's OSC for a good almost 3 years. But what happened was I met this kid in early 2016, and he was a neurodiverse kid, and he came up to me and he said, and I said, hey, look, I've got a channel here. You can watch some videos here if you want some help, and you can learn at your own time. And he was like, oh, what's the channel's name? And I said, oh, it's Matt's OSC. What? That sounds too hard, Why don't you should have like a name. He was straight up, he's, like he didn't
Yeah.
hold back. He was like, no, that's a stink name. You got to have a much better name people will remember. And I was like, well, what do I do? And because at that time I I would actually show my tattoo to the kids. And so the kids would actually see the Infinity Plus One tattoo. And he looked at the tattoo and he went, you should call that thing there Infinity Plus One. And I looked at it and I was like, oh yeah, that's a no-brainer. I should call that. So I did. I ended up in 2016 renaming it as Infinity Plus One. But the real meaning behind it is I'm not gonna lie, I didn't actually share it for a very long time. And it wasn't until February this year I actually went out on public and I actually shared the meaning, because it actually it quantifies. It's a bit, I don't know, I'm getting embarrassed telling this, but I'm going to try and say it with a straight face. But it's how much I actually love my wife, because when we were dating, she would always ask me, is like, you always play that game with your partners is like, oh, how much do you love me? I was like, oh, I love you this much. They go, I love you this much more. And I was like, I kept saying to her, look, more and more. And she goes, and one day she said to me, like, surely you can come up with a number that's, you're a mathematician, come up with something that's really cool. And I said, cool. I love you infinity plus one. And she goes, what does that mean? I said, like, for every day that I get to know you, I love you more. So it's, whenever you think it is the end, just remember that I love you more than that. And she loved it. And so I got it inked by a traveling Russian on a bike in Nepal at a random hotel. That's another story. But yeah, so that's pretty much how Infinity Plus One was born. And as for because my channel was quite faceless for almost till 2019. And it was only after 2019 I even revealed my face on the channel. But till then, I was just hiding in the background, just doing my thing quietly at the back with no one really bugging me. So yeah, that's
What
where the Infinity Plus One was gone.
what a beautiful story. I mean, that's it's even more beautiful when you think about the name and how the name has come through. I think that's something that Tana and myself also really, when we thought about a podcast name, we wanted to name it something that had some meaning, not just a
Yeah.
random name. So yeah, it's really beautiful. And it's so awesome that it's got such a beautiful, beautiful story. And the tattoo as well to remind you as well. So yeah, you'll always be beating your wife in that state there. How much you love me. Infinity plus one. Can't
Yeah,
beat
well,
that,
the
can
thing
they?
is, no, you can't. The thing is, like, I think, uh, and I think I'd say this out loud. Now, most of the time, the things that I get to do is because it's because I have a supportive wife. Like even right now,
Yeah.
before I came to this conversation, she's like, "You go, I'll look after I'll sort them out, and we'll have that conversation." And I think I've lost track of the number of times where she said, "Nah, you just go ahead, go do your thing, and I'll keep an eye on things here." And yeah, so it is dedicated to her at the end of the day. So,
Yeah, 100%.
yeah,
Shout out to Lakshmi for being the person that, because we always think about people that are successful, but there's always someone behind, whether it's your wife, your parents, or your best friend. There's always someone just there behind, and for you, it's awesome to have that there, which is really, really beautiful. Um, but also, in amongst all your YouTube channeling, I read somewhere that 2013 was when things switched for you. About you heard about the Global Teacher Prize, and you were like, actually, let me think things a little bit differently. What is where did that come from? And was that something that somebody
yeah.
told you about, or
No, no, no. So again, like I don't think it was 2013, but I remember exactly what happened. What ended up happening was, so we'd come back from this trip and we blew our house deposit on this trip. So we came back and suddenly we found out that the banks turned around and said that you need 20% deposit now. You're no longer working with 10%, and the houses just started going bananas. And I was like, it was suddenly like you almost needed $1 million just to buy a house. That was in 20, I remember in 2014, 15, we were like, okay, this is crazy. But what ended up happening was I remember we bought the house, we bought our house, we bought a real small place out in South Auckland. And um, but I was still kind of looking around. It's like, and I'm going to be honest, man. Like I was like, oh, what are some of the ways people make money? Is like you're always looking for little shortcuts here and there.
totally.
And randomly, I come across, I think it was 2016, I came across this thing about this teacher had just won $1 million. And I was like, whoa, this is next level, like a teacher winning $1 million. And so I kind of looked it up and I wanted to see what these guys were doing to be even getting to that level. And I was like, people have always said, oh, you're a good teacher. Like kids come and say, oh, sir, you're awesome. You hear comments in YouTube, oh, you're doing some good work. But then I was like, okay, it's all words, but it's like, is there something to kind of solidify that fact? And it really got me thinking. And I remember the first time the award came through, I read through the profile of the teacher that had won it. And I was like, okay, she's like, man, this is next level what she's doing. She's doing like, work at a school. She's doing things outside of school. She's doing like workshops. She's like looking after teachers. That's a lot. I don't even know how they're doing it. Um, then the next year, what happened was I saw another lady won it. This time there was a lady from, I think it was from Palestine that won it. And I looked through her stuff and I was like, teaching in war-torn countries. And I was like, okay, this is like, there's no way you're gonna get to this level, dude. Like, forget about it. Um, but you know what? There was that was the top one person, right? The first person was getting 1 million. But there was these other top 10, like people that were coming from like 10. And I looked at it and I went like, okay, like, look, I'm going to be honest, like realistically aiming for that, that's crazy, but I'm going to aim anyway. But this top 10 seems like a nice little goal to have, because at least I know that there's no, like, there's a feeling in me that says you can never be the single best at something, because there's always other factors in play. But to be considered in that stage, I was like, okay, that's what I'm gonna aim for. So then what I did was like, okay, I had a look through I think it was like what they needed to do, and I was like, okay, this is too much. I'm not going to be able to do it. 2016 comes in. End of 2016, I get my first professional award from NZAMT, and they basically they gave me an award for making resources on YouTube, and I was like, cool, this is nice. I'm going to put that certificate away. And then in 2017, the inaugural Margaret and Kalman Award from Auckland University for outstanding maths teachers came out. That was their first year they did it. And I was like, well, might as well put it in and just see what happens, right? And but by that time, I had started like going on this journey of like running workshops for all the maths teachers. And I found this little robot called Sphero Robots, and I started changing how maths gets taught, especially trigonometry. I was using the robots a lot to teach trigonometry. And so my YouTube stuff was happening, my Spheros was helping with trig, and I was changing how assessments was being done. And next thing you know, by the end of 2017, I picked up Kalman Award, and then the New Zealand Association of Maths Teachers dropped me a Jim Campbell Award, and I was in the running for the Prime Minister's Science Teacher Prize as well that year. I didn't get the Science Teacher Prize, and I'm glad I didn't get it at that point. And but by the end of that year, I went back and had a look at this criteria, and I went, okay, there's 7 criterias. Dude, I've already done 2 of them. So now I got to focus on the next 5. Okay. So I put myself a little goal, and I said, every year I'm going to try and work on one of these goals and just chip away at it slowly. And this is not a race. This is not like we need to do everything right now. And the thing is, the year that I decided, Eddie Wu from Australia was in the top 10. Now, he's a maths teacher that has, I think, a couple of million subscribers on YouTube. But the way he does it is he actually records his lessons online, I mean, during class, and he uploads it. And that's pretty much it. Now I was like, well, I need to do something different, right? I need to do something different if I'm going to go up on that stage, because you don't want to have the same thing. So I was like fishing around, and I found, I looked at some data in my YouTube, and I found that kids were only accessing YouTube between 6 o'clock and 11 o'clock, Sunday to Thursday, my channel. And I'm like, why is that? And that kind of got me into the part of like, okay, let me just see. And I found like there was always huge spikes when it comes just before exams. There's like this massive spike on my channel. So I tried this live streaming idea. Like people game and they live stream. I was like, would anybody watch a maths teacher just do some maths? That was literally my thought process. And I'm like, well, if you don't try it, you're never going to know. So I tried it. The first night I put it up, I said, hey, I'm doing a live tutorial. If anybody wants to join, they can join. Now, I was expecting maybe like 15, 20 kids that might show up. I got 453 students that
Wow.
And I kid you not, man, it was crazy. My wife was sitting next to me, and she's like, you need to and these questions are just coming. And my wife's like, oh, make sure you answer this username's question. So she's cutting and pasting the questions from the chat onto my OneNote document, which is getting synced. And I'm like, for 2 hours, I just answered questions, and I went, there's something here that we're missing.
Yeah.
And so I kind of started on that train, and then that kind of started growing into his own thing, because again, it started ticking off those little things in each one of those criterias on that Global Teacher Prize. Eventually there was the National Excellence in Teaching Awards, and then there was the news articles, and it was just like one after the other that just kept happening. And I think 2 years ago, Karen Rutherford did a piece, and I think that's what got me to that last criteria, because one of the last criteria was you needed recognition from the government in not in a teaching capacity, so something that you're doing outside of teaching. And so I was like, well, local hero, that was the only thing that I could think about. But that's something the kids had to nominate, and I
Yeah.
had like I literally don't do any work. And so they nominated me 2 years ago, and I didn't make it to that 100 at all. And then last year, the kids said they're gonna know. Some kids were like, they were disgusted because they were like, I had 6 accounts. I nominated you on my 6 accounts, and they didn't even let you. I was like, look, guys, it's okay. I'm sure there's some other people doing some amazing things, but there's always next year. But last year when it came through and I got that medal, and I turned around to my wife and I said, I think I got to apply. I think I've got everything, one of these tick boxes, and it's been 8 years. I could have waited for another couple of years, to be honest, but I was like, nah, let's just apply, see what happens. If you don't get to
Yeah.
the top 10, top 50, it doesn't matter. You just try again. That was the goal. I just applied for just to see if I can make it. I didn't realize I was going to go all the way to that level, but you know what? That's pretty much what happened, man. Like it's 8 years I've been working on it, and I'm not going to lie. There is a part of me that feels a little empty, a little sad that I actually did it. But I guess the experience, what it has taught me is, you finish a journey, and then off you go to the next one, and you figure out a way to kind of move forward. And I guess talking to people and just talking to you guys about what's been happening, it's helpful because it makes me reflect on what I've done, but at the same time, it's formulating what I want to do next. So yeah, that was pretty much the 8 year journey there.
It's really beautiful because and a lot of things I do, you got to think with what the end is in mind. So you had end goal in mind. It didn't matter how long it took you. You started breaking it down into little steps and along the way. And one thing that we've noticed with people that come to the podcast, every single one of them have said to us, if you don't try, you don't know. If you don't apply, if you don't apply, you're always going to get a no. So like you said, you're just going to apply, and you've done your bit, and you hand it over to the judges, and they decide.
Yeah. And I think that's something that I try and tell my kids as well, because there's been a group of kids that were with me from 2020 to 2023. I got to play the role of a Mac, which is basically I got to look after them for 4 years. Now these kids, they went through COVID with me, and they've actually left me there at senior college right now, but they still keep in touch with me. But for them to see the progress when I've told them in 2020, hey, this is something I'm aiming for, and I'm going to be working away slowly, for them to see that in action after 6 years, they've actually told me, hey, Subash, you've got to tell this story to people, because they know the story from, before I was 12 and some of the crazy stuff that's happened there. And so they were like, they know the full story, and they were like, you've got to share it, because a lot of kids need to hear that no matter how things get tough, if you have a goal and you kind of just work away slowly at it, and it might not happen tomorrow, it might not happen this year, but it's eventually going to happen, because somewhere along the way that it just changes from like oh, I might want to do this to I need to do this, and I think when that happens, it's an awesome thing, because you just kind of go on your own train, and you just off you go on the tracks, and don't really nothing holds you back. So yeah.
And I guess the other thing as well, as you say, is it's awesome to have that vision there, but also the stuff that you're doing is impacting a lot of people. Like it's not just you. Like it's the ripple effect of what you do is immeasurable, essentially.
But there's a secret to that. It's, to be honest, I'm a big fan of, I think, I don't, I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard of Tafara Tapafa
Yep.
somewhere.
Yep.
For me, it's a huge thing. And I didn't know about it till I came to my current workplace, which is Ormiston Junior College. When I got asked one time to teach health curriculum to some of the kids, and I was like, well, where do you start from? And they're like, Tafara Tapafa. I was like, cool. When I learned about that, man, it helped me so much. And there's a part of me that's like, this stuff needs to be taught to every child, because anytime I'm like, I'm not feeling good, my wife just turns and goes, "Have you done did you do any exercise?" I was like, "Oh no, yeah, I think I did some exercise." "Oh, have you talked to your counselor?" "Yeah, I talked to her about a month ago. Maybe I should talk." And then she's like, what's the other one? "Have you caught up with your mates yet?" "Oh yeah, I've been a bit too busy." Or she's like, "Go do stuff on YouTube." Because for me, I don't really have like I'm not a spiritual person. I don't have a religion or stuff like that. But what I do have though is the feeling that I get when I help kids. And it's like, right now, I'll tell you right now, if I go online right now and say I'm going to go live, I guarantee you at least 10 kids will pop up and they're like, "What is he doing? And can you teach me this?" And I'm like, "Cool." So for me, I have that as a way where I am, I need them as much as they need me.
Yeah.
It's a symbiotic relationship because it's when I help them, I feel good. And when they come into the tutorials and or like a year later, they come back and say, "Hey, because of you, I've got the scholarship. Because of you, I went, did this. Thank you." And like that just feeds me more to go, what I'm doing is actually is worth doing. And so it's this, and I think that's pretty much I've kind of become addicted to it. It's like knowing that I can actually help somebody. It's not a bad addiction to have.
Yeah, and I think this is quite funny because I think Tanya and myself are both the same, in our roles. I work in a different role at the moment, but in my role it's very similar. You do all this work and you just have these people that come to you. I just had one person message me today saying, "Hey, I got a scholarship. You remember you helped me answer the question 3 years ago." I was like, "I can't actually remember that, but okay, cool." And I've got a scholarship. So, those are the things. I think Tanya is the same with the work that he does. And, so when you see that coming through, and as you said, it's such a healthy addiction to have because it's not about
Mm.
you anymore. It's about other people.
I think I always say this thing, and I kind of say this to my students as well. If you have the ability to help someone, why not?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's right. Tanya, you to add something back there as well? Because you're pretty passionate about this as well.
Yeah, oh no, 100%, I agree. Yeah, and I think it's always rewarding to give back, and I think, as you say, no matter how often you do it, and I think that's something that I've not necessarily lost in the last year or two, but I think a few of the spaces that I had been mentoring in that I'm not necessarily anymore, you feel that place of uncertainty or that 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 you're not so comfortable in that space. But you're right, when you do go back into it, you get that new
Mm.
excitement and newfound excitement. I think that also comes from a space that now that my little sister has now come into high school, it's going, well, why does she not listen to me when and then so many other spaces. But again, it's learning that, obviously I'm not in the same place that I was 5 years ago where it probably was a bit more relatable to her as well. So, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, so funny.
Yeah.
Trying to tell your siblings what to do never works. Never works. Let's forget about that. But Subash, one thing I want you to talk about is, as you mentioned before, everyone sees you as as what you're doing right now. But your story was not that. As you said before, university was a challenge for you. You've failed a couple of times. And what was that like for you at that time? The reason I ask is because people need to know that failure doesn't mean it's the end of the road for you. Failure is just part of the whole journey. And if you don't mind elaborating how that was for you at that point in time.
Oh, easy, mate. Like, look, let me put it this way to you. Like, so I think I got to give you some context so that
Sure.
listeners can
Perfect.
kind of get an idea. So I moved from India to New Zealand when I was 12, and I think coming into New Zealand, my parents were like, "Look, we wanted to move to New Zealand so that our kids get really good education." And so from a young age, I was drummed in that I was either going to be an engineer or a doctor or,
Good doctor, yeah.
the usual. And I remember when I finished my, I think it was seventh form back then. I finished it, and which is year 13, and I went to uni, did engineering for a year, and I completely bombed it because I was not interested in it. And I went to US to do a summer camp in Disney World, and it was during there that I kind of discovered, okay, I'm not really enjoying engineering. And at the same time, I found that my parents wanted to move to Australia, so we had done this arrangement where I was going to go to US, They were going to move to Australia. They wanted me to come to Australia, but I was like, nah, I'm going to go back to New Zealand. I said to them, I lied to them. I said, I was going to continue with my engineering degree. But when I came back, I changed it to a maths degree. And so imagine this, right? Like I've been like kind of like this person that's been like such tight walls in at family, not allowed to go out in the night and all of that. And suddenly you are 18 years old and you're living in an apartment in the city by yourself and you've got the ultimate freedom. It was chaos, mate. Like I didn't know how to cook like a meal for myself. Like I had none of those skills. I didn't know how to do, like, I mean, I knew how to do laundry, but like that consistency of like actually, you've got to do this and you've got to cook meals regularly. No, it's so it was like almost I came back from the US. I had two bags, a suitcase and a duffel bag. That's all I had. I had 500 US dollars and the support of our government with the student loan, and that was it. And so that freedom that I got there, I misused it. And I'm not gonna lie, like there was no like I was not into partying, I was not like smoking or drinking or doing any of those things. Somewhere along the way, I decided that I will only take my first drink when I graduate from university. And so what ended up happening was the first year I went to my maths degree, failed. Second year, failed. By 2004, I had failed so many papers, and it was coming to a point. I remember, like two of my best friends, they had graduated, and one was about to go to UK to work with his wife, like go with his wife, and the other one had started a company, and there I was standing next to them. I had nothing. I had no money. I had no degree. I didn't even get through like second year, struggling to get through second year after 4 years. And then, of course, I started getting the calls from Australia. My mum and dad are like, look, you're just wasting your time. You're wasting money. Come here. We'll get you a job in the train tracks. Because dad was working on the Sydney Metro and he's like, look, we can get you, you're a hard worker. You're an honest worker. You'll fit in. You can get like manager and stuff like that easy. And I was like, I didn't want to. I was like, I made this decision. I made a decision to stay back in New Zealand. I made a decision to be a teacher. I want to be a teacher. And and I remember it was, I would say like altogether from 2000 to 2004, I would have passed less than half the papers that I'd actually sat. But it wasn't until the end of 2004 when all those things collapsed. And I remember my mom's a maths teacher, and she called me and said that, look, you don't have to be a teacher. You can come over and you can just help us out here. And my dad, I remember one conversation, he said to me, I didn't leave India to come to New Zealand for you to become a teacher. And I think like when you have that many things going against you, and like at that time, I'm not going to lie, man, I didn't know anything about mental well-being or anything like that back in 2005, 4 it was. It was like, oh, you felt bad? Okay. There was no coping, there was no support, there was nothing.
Totally.
And I remember it was 2004, the end of 2004, and it was New Year's Eve. 2005, I went back to my room and I kind of just looked at myself in the mirror and I went, shit, man, like I'm just sorry for swearing, but it's like I'm just blaming everybody else except the guy in the mirror. And the thing is, who is the one that's controlling this life that I'm having right now? It's me, because my friends are all doing their own thing. My parents are not even here. It's me that's the problem. It's not them. And so I was like, that was literally the first time I had written down 3 goals in my life. And I went, these are 3 goals I'm going to write. And I'm going to commit myself to making these 3 goals. And it was simple. One was attend all lectures, don't miss a single lecture. And then number 2 was try and pass every paper. And number 3 was because I was broke as well, I was like, I need to find a couple of jobs that I can actually generate some cash for me. And luckily, there was a job that opened up at the hotel that I was living next to, because I was living in this uni lodge back then. It was like student accommodation, and right next to it was a 4-star Copthorne hotel in Anzac Avenue. And I got me a job as a nighttime porter there. And it was probably one of the most 6 months of my life where I literally ground out what I wanted to do. And that's what changed me. So all that failure of 5 years, I literally took all of that and I went, right, I need to change this. I need to change the narrative. I need to change the story of Subash here. And if I don't change it now, I'm going to be one of those guys that's just going to go forgetting his dream, go and stay in his parents' house and work at the trains. And so yeah, so literally I did graveyard shifts at the hotel. I would clean the toilets and do all of that. So graveyard shift is like from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. I would sleep between 3 to 4 because my manager said, like, look, you can either study or sleep when you finished all your jobs. So I'll finish all the jobs real quickly and then study. And then I would go to lectures because I had this goal of not missing a lecture. The problem was lectures were not back to back. So you would have like a lecture at 8 o'clock and then you have a lecture at 11. So I'd actually go and sleep in the Kate Eggers Commons. I would sleep there and I would actually tell about 3 people that are around me. And I'll say, hey, look, can you wake me up at 10:55? I'm going to put an alarm, but this is supposed to be silent. But I don't want to, if I go home, I'm not going to come back.
Yeah.
So I would literally sleep in the Commons and somebody would always wake me up and they'd be like, hey, it's time for you to go to lecture. I'm like, okay, cool. Off I go. And, that 6 months, I attended every lecture. I passed all my papers. And then because I worked so much, I hardly spent time going out with my mates. I had saved up so much money and that was it, man. And that was where I went, dude, you can do whatever you want in life. You let nothing, nobody hold you back. And so that drive was born after failing that much, because I think when you hit the bottom of the bottom, most people think, there's actually no way out, but the reality is there is a way out, and that's actually going up. But it actually starts from self. You're the only one that can help you with that. You cannot depend on someone else to come and pick you up and go, hey, yeah, I'll come and help you out. Because this is what I call about like the cycle of resilience, right? Like if you want to build resilience, you have to go through that kind of that hard stuff. Because if you're not going through that hard stuff, you're never going to know what resilience is. So to me, if you say to me right now, hey, I bet you can't actually go and create a website in Japanese, I'll be like, I can't do it right now, but give me a month, I probably can. And so my whole mindset changed after failing that much and still not giving up and pursuing that goal. And that actually goes back to, and people ask me, where do you get that from? And most of the time I say it's from the stupid thing that we call maths, because when I was young, I never gave up on the questions because I'd be like, oh, how the hell did they get that? Or how does this work? And so you kind of train your brain to solve problems and not give up. And I think for me, I would say, if you're failing in something, that's okay. It's learn from it and go, okay, what do I need to do different next time? What am I going to change? Don't do the same things. It's like you've got to change something slightly and see what happens. But if you have this thing of I want to become something, I want to do something, I always say to my kids, it's like, don't let anybody stop you. Don't let your parents say, hey, you can't do that.
Totally.
The only person that can say that is just you. And if you say it, then it's gone. But if you say you can keep going, just keep going.
No,
Ooh, last time.
last time, yeah. No, I love that. And what I loved there was the fact that you went through the failure, but then you took ownership.
Yeah.
You took ownership. You stopped in the mirror and you just said, actually, who is the only person in control? And that was. And then what I also enjoyed there was, every time we hear people talk about goals, people have all these lofty goals, and it's good to have lofty goals. But sometimes just those small goals that go to class every day. That's achievable. That's right there in front of you, and you see what's happening. Good to have lofty goals to break it right down to what can I do today to get to that goal there, which is really beautiful. Well, thank you for sharing that, because I think that just shows context into, that not everything is hunky dory that we see. There's people go through, and life is a roller coaster, right?
Absolutely, man. Like, I mean, like, look, most people kind of see this and go, oh, you're like, kids come and say to me, you're famous, you're a celebrity. I'm like, look, I'm not. I'm a guy that goes to I don't know if you know Why Not in East Tamaki, which sells like
Yep.
I go there to shop every Saturday because I'm like, dude, I need groceries at a decent price. I wouldn't be doing that if I'm raking in money. But I think for me, what I've learned all of this experience is that you don't need to be that person. You can still be you and just enjoy things as it is. And yeah, so for me, I love the simplicity of things, and that's what helps me stay grounded and keep kind of pushing for things that I've never really thought about.
Yeah, and it's really amazing. I guess a question for you is, how did you feel when your YouTube channel started to to just explode? I guess because that was an expectation, and these things just happen. What is it like for you as you sat there watching these numbers go up and up and up?
To be honest, I think I'm fully aware that my channel is a seasonal
Yeah,
thing. So for me, it's like every year I will get a spike of subscribers at October,
clever.
November,
Yeah,
exam time. And then December, January, I get a big drop of like kids will like I'll lose like 1,000 subscribers. And I'm okay with that because for me, the goal was never about, oh, I want to be a YouTube star. It was more
yeah,
about just helping kids. So for me, I've always been like, oh, yep, goes up. Yep. I don't really pay attention too much to it because I know that at the end of the year, things will change. But for me, the biggest surprise about all of this is when 2 years ago, I started getting invites to come and visit schools. I think to me, that's the biggest kind of surprise and about all of this. And I was like, when did, like, mate, I think in my life in the last 2 years, I would have signed more than 2,000 calculators. And I'm
wow,
like, like, that's just weird, when you think about it. It's like, but the kids go, oh, can you please sign my calculator? And I was like, oh, okay. When the first started, I was like, this is just funny. But now it's one of those things where I'm like, hey, you know what? I get to do maths. I get to make maths in a way cool again. And I think I'm happy with that part of it. And along the way, I get to, help kids out and kind of do some lives and help them out during their stressful times. That always makes me feel good. But as for the YouTube numbers, honestly, mate, like I think I'm not gonna lie, I secretly wanted to go down a little bit because the reason is I think I joked about a year ago. I said I want to be the slowest YouTube channel to reach 100K subscribers because the record currently is held by an 83-year-old man and it's a Guinness Book of World Records. And I was like, that's a crazy thing to chase.
like
But
go, yeah.
all these awards are not helping that cause, they're messing up with my numbers.
Yeah, can I come on, everybody? Yeah, that's so funny,
You
man.
gotta you
Oh,
gotta look at positive at everything, man. Otherwise, it's
100%.
just it can be like it can be tricky, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, life is full of negativity, so you got to find the positive in all those, in everything that you do. And talk about the awards, how does it feel being told that you're the finalist for the 2025 KiwiBank Local Hero? Yeah,
Oh, mate, like I mean, I know that you guys would have looked at the fine list, like when I looked at that list of people that are coming, I mean, it's to be honest, like reaching the top 100 was like okay for me because I was like, "Hey, this is cool. I'm happy with this. I don't think I needed to go any further, but coming to the finalist is and the people that I'm sharing it with is because you've got
yeah,
Tamaiti
from
there,
experience. Yeah,
and then I always forget Fire's name, but I know Rata Oli is her last name, but
yeah.
she is just doing some incredible work with like domestic abuse victims. And when I found out that I was actually standing next to these two giants, I was like, you know what? I'm there at that level. I'm good with that. And I think just the fact that for me the important thing though is massive thanks to KiwiBank because they kind of shouted me a table to bring a few family and friends, and it got me
Yeah.
an opportunity to take my wife and a mate of mine who has literally been there from 94 when I walked into my
Wow.
first class, and he was the only brown boy that was sitting there. And I was like, this guy is I'm gonna have to stick with him. Now he's been with, I've known him for 31 years now. And so he and his wife is coming along with a few of my workmates who've just been incredibly supportive over the last 5 years with with doing this stuff, especially at this level. So yeah, it feels really, really crazy and cool, but I think I'm just happy to take the people that have kind of shaped me along to this journey. And remember the story that I told you when two of my mates, one had started a company.
Yeah.
He's one of the guys, and the other one I would have loved to invite, but he's in Wellington, and if I invite him, I got to invite his wife, and they've got to find babysitters. And I was like, oh, this is getting tricky now. So, but
Yeah.
yeah. So to me, it feels like incredibly awesome, and I think it also gives me an opportunity to kind of share with the message with the kids to say, look, sometimes it's when you think about the term YouTuber and local hero, it almost doesn't make sense because it's like when you think
Yeah.
of
Two
when you
different
think of
things, right?
YouTube,
Yeah.
yeah, when you think of YouTuber, you're thinking, oh yeah, he's probably rolling in millions in sponsorships and stuff like that. And but for me, it's like you can do something without, like, I mean, I'm not gonna say like you can do something without like getting lots of money. It's more like you can do something, and if you're happy with it, good things come along with it. So yeah, excited, nervous about next week. I'm not gonna lie. Like, they're gonna they're gonna make me sit next to these two giants, and I'm just gonna be like, okay, what's gonna happen here? And all my kids have like, sir, can you live stream while you're on the stage? And I'm like, I actually can, because I mean, I've got the get up to actually set it done. And but we'll see whether we stay in the moment. But if I
Yeah.
fall under pressure, so we'll see.
Yeah, just congratulations. I mean, that's really a testament to the hard work that you've done, but also a recognition from because people have recognized this. It's not something that you put your hand up for. People recognize it. So, as you said, with those two giants as well, in other people's eyes, you're a giant as well. So, congratulations from us. And whatever
Yeah.
happens next week, you're still an amazing hero. And it's the story you shared today is just the start of what happens next will happen next. But it's an amazing journey that should come through. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that today. It's really, really
No,
beautiful.
it's a pleasure, man. Like, I think the way I see it is that I think the biggest thing that I've learned about all of these kind of this last 2 months with Global Teacher Prize and Local Hero, the one thing that I've learned is, and how much, like, I actually said this, and I probably can't share it now. We had a little session where they talked about, oh, what would you do if you win the $1 million? And I think for me, it was really hard because it was like listening to these other teachers' stories, and I came up with a snap decision, and I didn't regret it for a bit. But what I said to them was, because we had a little psychologist come in, and they were doing a group session with us with all the 10 teachers from the globe, and so she asked me, the psychologist, what would you do if you win? And I said, that's easy. I actually don't need the money because I'd give it to the teachers that need it in this table. There's about 5 teachers that need this money. They can take 200 each, because what I have back home, money can't buy that. I have a loving wife. I have an amazing son. I got a dog that's super annoying to me. But most importantly, I have the words of thousands and thousands of Kiwi kids that have said thank you to me. And to me, that's something that nobody can buy. And it was at that moment that I realized, win or lose, it doesn't matter, because I already have everything what I need. And as long as I continue the work that I do, I will continue having that. And I think that's what the lesson for me over the last kind of 2 months has been. And I'm super grateful, because I don't think sometimes you realize what you have until you step away from it
Yeah.
and look
So,
at it from a different lens.
yeah.
So for me, I'm like, I'm super happy, man. Like, I got that. But there is a frustration though. The frustration though is not with the frustration part of it is like how teachers are seen globally. And I think that's probably where my next project is going to head towards, is how to find that voice, or how to find that um, respect back to teaching. And I'm talking around the globe,
Totally. Yeah.
how we can actually raise the profile of teachers a bit more. So that's kind of where I'm kind of heading towards, but we'll see what that comes through.
It's as you said, I just reflected about, your purpose at the start was the house price. was the motivation at the start, at this
Yeah.
whole start of the whole journey. And as you come to where you are right now, that's not even in there. How that's disappeared. So it's pretty crazy. We have to thank the Auckland housing market for getting you where you are at the moment. It's a pretty crazy story. Yeah, and like
Yeah.
you, I share the sentiment about, the value of teachers, the value of what they bring to a classroom. And unfortunately, when you work with teachers and when you work in education, you see the power that one person has in the classroom, but how it's not recognized at all. And the blame game is so easy. The
Oh,
blame game is so easy. And you must say this every single day.
that's another podcast for a day, mate.
Yeah, that's another podcast for another day. Yeah, we've been talking for almost an hour or so. I mean, this is really beautiful. And we could keep talking for much longer. But what we'll do is we'll wrap up the podcast, and our podcast is called Baskets of Knowledge. In every episode, we ask our guests to share a piece of knowledge to put into our basket. You shared so much today, but is there any particular piece of knowledge to put into our basket that you would love to share with our audience? And yeah,
I think I kind of very subtly said it at the back there. It's like the one thing that I would say is I think everybody has the ability to help someone. And for me, the biggest thing is like, it's if you have the ability to help someone, and if you can, then just do it because you never know what kind of impact you have on that person. And I think, yeah, I could share so many stories about it, but it's as simple as that. Because if you're not here to help someone else and someone else come up, then I think there's a fundamentally there's something wrong with that. I think it's always about us, it's always as a people, it's us. And if we look after us, then I think us will look after our generations to come. And that's my belief anyway. That's my one kind of thing that I do. The reason I do all of this is that my hope is that someday all of this help or thing that I'm trying to give out can come back, not to me, but perhaps to my son and his kids, and for generations to come. And I think if we can think like that, and if we can just help somebody out, that'll make a massive difference. So yeah, that's pretty much it from me, man.
that's such a beautiful. I love that. If you can help. It's as simple as that. There
Yeah,
doesn't matter what
yeah,
it looks like. What a beautiful way to wrap this podcast. Subash, it's been really a real joy speaking to you. Your energy is so infectious. I can see why people jump onto your channels. If you were my maths teacher, I might have passed maths, but that's another story for another day. Just discrete math at university, failed it twice, but that's okay. We'll go back there. But thank you so much. Thank you for jumping on. Good luck for next week, depending on when you listen to this podcast here. We'll be cheering you on, and whatever happens. You're a hero in lots of people's eyes. So thank you so much for jumping on. Yeah, for our listeners out there, thank you for jumping on. If you're new to the podcast, hopefully you enjoyed this session. If you're a regular listener, hopefully you've learned a lot today as well. And remember, the most important thing over the next few weeks is to keep smiling, find something to help other people, and don't forget about something to pass knowledge. Till next time,
yep.
ka kite. Bye, everybody. Peace.
Thank you again, mate.